Well, that was fast. According to Ariel Helwani, the UFC is targeting Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo for UFC 284 in Australia, and that card is on February 12th. Interesting location to put Henry Cejudo on, because most likely who would be headlining an Australian card would be if they were able to get together Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Islam said he wants to go to Australia and fight Volk in his hometown. With Cejudo on that card, it looks like there might actually be a reality where Cejudo beats Sterling, Volk beats or even loses to Islam, doesn't really matter, and then you line up those two together, Cejudo versus Volkanovski for the 145-pound title. I don't know if that's exactly what they're looking to do here, but they're putting them on the same card, maybe if Cejudo is possibly able to win here, and let's say he does it in emphatic fashion. But this fight, Sterling versus Cejudo, is something that I think a lot of the fans want to see the most right now. I know according to a lot of fans, Marlon Vera should be the #1 contender, he should be the guy that's fighting for the belt, or even Sean O'Malley. I think the best thing to do is O'Malley versus Cheeto for that #1 contender spot, and has Cejudo fight Sterling in the meantime. I like that scenario more than anything else. As we just saw today, Sean O'Malley is officially the #1 contender of the division. But here's the thing, Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo cannot really be a main event in my opinion. I don't think it draws enough pay-per-views to main event. So co-main event under that Islam and Volkanovski fight seems to be the best scenario possible. And the fight itself, stylistically, is a tough one for Sterling. It is. Cejudo hasn't fought in a long time. Sterling's been very active, so there is something going there for the champion. But going up against one of the greatest wrestlers to ever compete in MMA, he's never been taken down before. I know the stats say that DJ took him down one time in the 3rd round of their 2nd fight, but when you look back at it, it's not a takedown. He reversed a takedown from Cejudo. Cejudo fell on the bottom, but DJ never had any control. He didn't establish any kind of attack or anything like that. There was no takedown attempt from DJ. Yeah, the people who count takedowns and not, they have no idea what they're really looking at, as we've seen over and over again in fights. This is going to be probably the toughest guy for Aljamain Sterling to take down in a fight. So if he cannot get Cejudo to the ground in some way, maybe he can pull guard, there's an option there. Even striking-wise, Cejudo is very dangerous. The guy has one-shot knockout power, he's way faster than Sterling. He has a totally better understanding of striking. His footwork alone is going to be very hard for Sterling to get a grasp of when to strike, trying to strike him when he comes in or moves away. Sterling does have that reach, he does have very high output, he has kicks that come out of nowhere, but the more he kicks, the more Cejudo might be able to take the fight to the ground if he wants to do that, or ultimately block, parry, and counter. That's going to be the biggest thing for Cejudo going into the fight. Pressure Sterling as much as he can. Sterling throws a lot of things out there, and because he throws a lot of things, he's going to be oftentimes open to counter shots. And all Cejudo has to do is find an entry on that center line where Sterling's defense alone is pretty wide and loose. So a crushing right straight from Cejudo can absolutely do the job here. Aljamain is going to have to land some high kicks in there, put a lot of jabs on Cejudo's face, jam-pack that center line with jabs and right straights and front kicks, just to keep Cejudo away from attacking there. Cejudo does his best work on the center. Creating a blockade on the center line is the best thing for Aljamain Sterling, and if he ever gets close, if Cejudo ever gets inside on Sterling, he has to clinch up, throw some knees, throw some elbows, make it more of a Muay Thai fight in there, and potentially even try to pull guard if it's necessary. He is a bigger guy, so Cejudo's gonna have a harder time pick and hold Sterling up if he pulls guard. But like I said, stylistically, I think Cejudo should probably be the favorite going into this. He is going to be a bit older here. I know a lot of people are looking at Henry Cejudo's age. Cejudo's going to be 36 by the time the fight happens, but he's not going to be that much older than Aljo. Aljo's going to be almost 34 by the time that fight happens, and he's been knocked out in his career. He has a lot more fights on his record. He's been around a lot longer than Cejudo has. So in fact, I don't think the age is going to be that much of a problem. It's more the activity than the age. By the time that fight happens, Cejudo would not have competed for nearly 3 years. And it's reminiscent to like GSP when he retired the belt, vacated it, and then came back and fought. Or even if you look back at when Dominic Cruz did that. Cejudo's going to be attempting something here that if he pulls it off, it's going to make him even greater moving forward. And you can't really deny him a featherweight title shot if he does so. I guess the only way you can is you don't want to hold up too many divisions. If Cejudo comes back and beats Sterling and then immediately vacates that and fights Volkanovski for the featherweight title, and no matter what happens there, he's probably going to retire afterward, there's potentially 2 divisions that you could be holding up. But here's the difference between that and the whole issue around GSP coming back and doing that again. I'm pretty sure the UFC wants either Sean O'Malley or Cheeto to be the champion. If you look at it by the numbers, who's the most famous fighter and all of that, both O'Malley and Cheeto have a bigger following than Sterling. So I don't think they mind too much with Sterling losing. I don't think they have a problem with anybody beating Aljamain Sterling as long as they can have either Sean O'Malley or Cheeto be the champ. I think they'll be fine with that scenario happening. Now, the thing about Volkanovski is Volk is not like a big star. He's not drawing a lot of numbers. Maybe if he beats Islam, it could do something like that, but I think they don't see it as much of a risk for Cejudo to fight Volk, given that Volk should be a massive favorite going into that fight. But with Aljamain Sterling, I think everybody knows it's a stylistically tough fight for Sterling. There's not really much the UFC would lose with Aljamain losing his belt to a potential bigger star. It's a reason why I think they would be up to have this kind of thing happen right now. But I can't wait for this fight, man. I do favor Henry Cejudo to win the fight, and I'm really curious to see if they would actually do Volk versus Cejudo for a man to make history here. 3-division champion, no one has ever done that before. It would be one of the biggest, if not the biggest accomplishment in UFC history.